Festival will be a major test for consumer appetite as this year's edition comes against a tough backdrop with the resurgence of COVID and subsequent lockdowns. Let's bring in Jacob Cooke, CEO of WPIC. It's an e-commerce and tech consultancy helping foreign brands sell in China. Jacob, great to have you with us. First off, what do you see as really the ongoing impact, given that, yes, we've seen major cities like Shanghai emerge from these wholesale lockdowns, but we see, targeted lockdowns, mass testing, and a lot of uncertainty, which must be weighing on consumer sentiment?
Yeah, it certainly is. We're still expecting this to be by far the biggest shopping event globally over the first half of the year. But we're not expecting the 30% sort of average year-over-year growth that we've seen in the previous 10 years, as well as, different sectors. We're not fully out of lockdowns yet. At least the warehouses are open. We're probably at about 96, 97% on terms of supply chain and deliveries. But, there's still some holdbacks on buildings and some of the tier ones that aren't letting deliveries through. And we're not really to the point where we would say that we would be at revenge spending yet. When you look at what happened in 2020, there was massive growth that year, but we were really clearly out of pandemic-related lockdowns. And we're right at the point right now where we're still seeing some restrictions in tier one. We're expecting it to beat last year, but probably not at the 30% level that we've seen in previous years.
Regina was saying just earlier, it's not so much revenge spending as people buying necessities, right? Like white goods and things like that. Is the sense that having to live with COVID, this COVID normal scenario, in a way that it is for China, going to impact the sorts of consumption trends?
Yeah, we've definitely seen the same thing across all platforms. Behavior, and he was talking about refrigerators. If you go back to pre-COVID, appliances weren't really a sector that, was primarily purchased online. Well, in pre-sales across the platforms this year is about 250% increase over last year in terms of appliances. Also, food deliveries are becoming big, and we're probably not going to see that growth in those particular areas go back to offline. I think that when behaviors have changed and what we've seen, with this pattern before in the last couple of years, that these sectors remain resilient online. There's definitely some weakness in terms of travel-related sectors and luxury, with entertainment venues still being down. But, overall, some of these areas that are way up are going to probably produce numbers that will be higher in aggregate over 2021.
Jacob, do you see a difference in this type of consumption and trends that we saw at the beginning of the pandemic versus 2 years later, when we still have some parts reopening and some not reopening and going back into restrictions?
I think in terms of the patterns that we saw, health and wellness has been really a theme over the last couple of years. We've seen growth in athleisure products, home exercise equipment, nutraceuticals. People are taking better care of them. Apparel isn't down as much as it was in those first 2 years. We're still seeing reasonably good growth in some sectors that are not very luxury related. And beauty actually is probably coming in about level. And we saw big decreases during the first COVID lockdowns in that sector specifically.
Tell us a little bit about the rise of social commerce and how big this is in China as well.
Well, it's certainly getting bigger. One of the major things that we've seen, if you go back, was the big three live streamers on Alibaba really controlling a large part of the market. Now people are being influenced by a wide variety of different platforms. Xiaohongshu, or Little Red Book, is very important. We're seeing increased consumption, which is more direct to consumer on WeChat mini programs as well. Douyin is reporting, triple-digit increases in their e-commerce, and this is part of a well-announced plan that they've been saying. So if we lose the big audiences for the big three, and now two of them are offline, we expect that to be spread out much more broadly amongst the other influencers out there, which is going to help brands by being a little bit of a lower barrier to entry. If you had everything concentrated basically in three consumers, you've got a lot of bidding that drives up those individual slots. There's only so much time on those shows. But if that spreads out to 80, 90, or even 100 different powerful industry or influencers in different industries, it's going to be easier for brands to access that type of time, as well as, opening up their own channels to have more of a direct communication with consumers.
Jacob Cooke, it was really good to have you on. WPIC CEO with a look ahead to the consumption that we're seeing across China. And still ahead, a shock BOJ policy shift today could lead to a paper loss of $219 billion on its bond holdings. We'll get more analysis next on where traders are placing their bets. This is Bloomberg.